Hey Team Bio, welcome to your screencast on how to perform a dihybrid cross. Now, we've already examined a monohybrid cross, and a monohybrid cross is when you're looking at the inheritance pattern of just one gene. And a dihybrid cross is when you're looking at the inheritance pattern of two genes. So in a previous screencast last week, we talked about the MRC1 gene, and this was the gene that determined whether or not you have freckles. So if you were capital F, if you had the dominant allele, then this is the freckles. CK, oops. This is way too big. Turn this down. So this is the dominant allele. And if lowercase f is freckle less, which is recessive. So we talked about that if you have one copy of the big F allele, so if you are homozygous dominant or if you're heterozygous, meaning you have one copy of each, then you show the dominant phenotype, which is freckles. You have to have two copies of the little f allele to show the recessive phenotype, which is freckle less. Okay, so let's imagine that in addition to looking at this MRC1 gene, we're also looking at the gene for your hairline. So capital W is widow's peak. And this is when you have if you pull back your hair, you'll notice you have either a little point at the tip of your head or not. And widow's peak is dominant over little w, which I'm going to draw this way so I can keep them straight, is a straight, straight hairline, which is recessive. Okay, so let's imagine that we have a person who is heterozygous for both of these genes. So their genotype is capital F, lowercase f. They have one copy of their freckles allele and one copy of the freckle-less allele. And then this is on, let's say, chromosome 1. And then on chromosome 2 is the widow's peak gene, and they have one copy of the dominant allele and one copy of the recessive allele. So they are heterozygous for both genes. So their genotype is they have freckles, their phenotype is capital F, lowercase f, capital W, lowercase w, and their phenotype is freckles and widow's peak. Okay, so imagine this person produces some gametes, either egg or sperm. So their cells have to go through meiosis. So after one round, or after S phase, the cell goes from a chromosome that is not composed of sister chromatids to a chromosome that is composed of sister chromatids. The homologous chromosomes line up at the metaphase plate, and if they are aligned in this manner, then the gametes that will ultimately be produced at the end of meiosis are the following gametes. We have capital F with uppercase W, and we also have lowercase f with lowercase w. So they'll produce some gametes that have both dominant alleles and some gametes that have both recessive alleles. However, you know that this arrangement of chromosomes at independent assortment is equally likely. So they will also produce gametes that have capital F with lowercase f and lowercase f with capital W. And these gametes will all occur in equal ratios because we would expect this arrangement and this arrangement to both be equally likely. So 25% of their gametes will be this, 25% of their gametes will be this, 25% of their gametes will be this, and 25% of their gametes will be this. I'm sure you can imagine a situation where the freckles gene and the hairline gene are both on the same chromosome, in which case we would not expect to see 25, 25, 25, 25. We would expect to see a different ratio. That's called linked genes, and that is not for the screencast, but if you're interested, you should look it up. Okay, so now we are going to perform a dihybrid cross where we look at two individuals who are reproducing and look at their genotype and examine the gametes that they can produce. So both of these people are heterozygous for both of these genes, and as we just discussed above, they can produce all of these different gametes. So these two people, they both can produce capital F, capital W gametes, or lowercase, lowercase, or uppercase, lowercase, or lowercase, uppercase. So just like we did when we performed a monohybrid cross, we take all of the possible gametes that both of these people could produce, and we put them on the outside of a Punnett square. And I'm just going to erase the ors here. So these are the possible gametes this person can produce, and then these are the possible gametes that this person can produce. So I'm going to line them up on the outside. So these are sperm, these are eggs, and within the Punnett square we see all of the possible combinations of alleles in the offspring. So we just go across. It's a little bit tedious, but this is capital F, capital F, capital W, capital W. And I'm just going to try and go through this relatively quickly. Lowercase f, W, W, capital F, lowercase f. So traditionally, when we have one copy of, oh wait, sorry. I'm going to rearrange my Punnett square gametes so that it's a little bit neater. Apologies, everyone who's doing this in pen. You all hate me. I'm sorry. Okay, the Punnett square just comes out a little neater if we do it this way. Campbell, I know you're furious. My sincerest apologies. W, W, capital. So you can just play some music and slowly fill out your Punnett square. Okay, so here is our completed Punnett square. So these are all the possible genotypes of the offspring. But what we really care about are the different phenotypes. So let's go through and color code all of the phenotypes that we find within the Punnett square. So let's start with if someone has freckles or a widow's peak. So any big F or big W, I should say, individual, if you have a copy of either of those alleles, then you're going to have the dominant phenotype. So all of these individuals have freckles and they have widow's peak. These people do as well. Okay, so notice there are 9 individuals in the Punnett square who have freckles and widow's peak. Okay, next we have freckleless and widow's peak. So anyone who has 2 copies of the lowercase f allele, but 1 copy of the uppercase W allele is going to be someone that has no freckles but a widow's peak. So there are 3 of them. And if you have freckles but a straight hairline, you are going to look like this. So they are also 3 of these. And if you are freckleless and have a straight hairline, you are the rare individual there. Okay, so this is a typical dihybrid cross. If you have 2 individuals who are both heterozygous for both genes that you are examining, and it's a simple dominant and recessive inheritance pattern, you would expect to see a 9:3 to 3:1 ratio in the offspring of the homozygous, or of the dominant phenotype, dominant and recessive, of dominant of one gene, recessive of the other, or vice versa here, 9:3 to 3:1, and then the 1 is showing both recessive traits. Okay, that is all.